proud members of the Fan First Sports Network.
This offensive line might help him get back into that conversation.
That's my thing is when a defense can't line up and tee off on you because they know you can't push the ball down the field because you don't have any wide receivers that can get open.
And to kind of go into what you're talking about, and to have a full season of an offensive coordinator that knows how to use a quarterback.
That too. That's my big thing is whether or not that's actually going to lead to statistically this offensive line looking a giant leap better. Mm-hmm. Not only do we have more talent, but
45, 40, 35, 40, he's gonna go!
It's time people feel it!
Big Red Junkies.
Day by day, he gets better and better! He gets better and better! Team is If we die, we die!
Man is moving a child in that. Put him in the aisle.
Bring that trophy back to Lincoln.
welcome to Lincoln, Elijah Pritchett. We are excited to have you here after what we're hearing in spring ball, seen at the Husker games. What'd you call them?
The Husker Lames.
Husker Lames.
They were not good.
We've had a lot of exciting additions that have come in this year out of the portal. And after spring, I don't know that I can say I'm more excited about any of them other than one guy on the offensive line. But to back it up quick, thank you for joining us on the Big Red Junkies. Please like, subscribe, share, follow. I'm BJ. This is Jed. This is Matt. If you haven't been here before, we appreciate you. Share us with your friends.
And if you haven't been here before, where the fuck have you been?
Go back and listen up.
Jesus Christ.
Fuckers.
Is this your first day?
Yeah, we're talking O-line today. We're kind of doing a post-spring preview for the upcoming year, and what we've heard is exciting.
Specifically with what we're talking about today, what we've heard about from the offensive line position, like it's kind of the first time I've been actually excited rather than just hopefully excited in many years with this offensive line. And, one of the big things, kind of going through, like trying to look at player by player and all that stuff that I was doing earlier today. Is there a guy that has kind of, I don't know how I really want to say this, but maybe shoved all of the criticism into everybody's faces more than Donovan Raiola? Like, with how when he got the job, and then it was, he's only staying because his nephew and the offensive line isn't really.
We're only letting him stay because of his nephew.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and now what we're seeing as a possibility for this offensive line this upcoming season, like everybody's praising Donovan Raiola for the progress that this group has had.
Well, progress from the guys that are staying and then the new additions on top of it, the whole thing is just kind of coming together for him.
And those new additions, when they talk about Donovan Raiola, are like, holy shit, this guy's the man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think it has a lot to do, too, with the fact that this was an under-talked about thing when Matt Rule decided to keep Donovan Raiola, was the fact that Donovan Raiola had coached under and coached the same style that as the coach that Rule coached with when he was with the Giants, coaching offensive line as well. They taught the same way. And for anybody that's never understood or been in an O-line room or any of those things, there's different styles, there's different techniques, there's different ways of talking about it.
Just like there is with
just
every
like
position.
there is in any position. But stylistically for him and Matt Rule to speak that same language, and apparently it's a little bit more unique and less common than the majority of them out there. I think that played as much of a role in this as anything else keeping him around. But how much success has that been able to allow Donovan?
Yeah.
You don't have someone from the top questioning anything you're doing when it's not working for the first year or two. Mm-hmm. He believed in the process. They kept recruiting to the guys and the personalities, I think, which is one of the biggest things you hear about. Like Pritchett talked 2 or 3 different times he's interviewed this spring, talked immensely. Rocco Spindler talked immensely about they're coming from great culture places. They're coming from places like, the magical quote unquote run that Notre Dame went on to get to the national championship. Everyone accredited it to the culture that they had and the style and the belief that they had in their program. And for Rocco Spindler to come in and say it's even better here, which, you're always going to say the new place is better than the old. But for him to come in and speak with so much conviction about the way that this room is a brotherhood and all that stuff, we've heard it before. Maybe this year, because of the talent that we now have in that room and the experience and the depth that we've built, now we actually might get to see it.
Yeah. And with the talent that we have that they're going to be blocking for, not just at quarterback, the wide receiver group, at least the number one running back that we all love, and the potential of the backup running backs that they're going to be blocking for in this offense with Dana Holgorsen and what he likes to run. I'm not going to call it the air raid like he used to run, because hell, he's even said in the spring interviews, he said, I've abandoned the air raid a long time ago.
He said he left it in the first couple of years in West Virginia.
Yeah. But still,
for those who don't know, he coached for 6 years in Houston after that.
Yeah. But the dynamic offense that he likes to run, it's cliche to say, but we're going to be dependent on this offensive line. And I like the potential of it, because when you have four guys with Evans, Lutovsky, Spindler, and Pritchett that have 3,000 snaps, it was actually 2,994 snaps last year.
Well, that missing 6 is that's a big deal, guys.
The difference.
But when you have 3,000
first possession, that first game, they're going to look like a new one right after that.
With basically our four of our 5 starting offensive linemen, those are probably going to be 4 of them. I love it.
Barring injury. That's
yeah,
100%.
And then just trying to figure out who the 5th guy is going to be between the injured guys that
but
unfortunately get injured.
You're not like, God, I hope this guy can come back because we're dead without him.
Yeah.
There's so many guys. There's so many people that are sitting there that are waiting. They're waiting to step up. We started to hear towards the end of spring ball, Grant Bricks. Is he gonna make another leap physically in the offseason? And Sam Sledge, not even on the physical side. From what I understand,
I'm just talking about guys that they brought up outside of the main guys,
Everybody talks about Bricks as this technician, and he's got all the talent in the world. He just hasn't gotten his body where it needs to be to play at the elite level yet.
I know that makes Matt hard, because
I love the kid.
You love
I'm excited
Bricks.
about him.
Gives him bricks in his pants, if you know what I mean.
Jesus Christ.
What the fuck? And beer crack.
It's a coincidence, I promise.
But for me, looking at it, we're not scared.
No,
we have plenty of bodies. In fact, we have kind of a lack of space for the guys that are up there that could be playing.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see if we end up getting to keep them all. But I mean, we lost Segrin, and that was whether that was a writing on the wall. Hey, you're not really one of the 2 deep guys here, and you're coming up on your junior year. You really got to be able to do something. Or if that was simply, I want to go start, and I think I can start somewhere. I don't know if he's that good yet.
I think it was more of a starting situation, because from all accounts, he had a great spring. So, but I just don't think he was going to crack the starting 5.
Rule had interesting comments when he was asked directly about the Segrin situation, and his response was basically like, we wish him the best of luck. We're so glad that he's got an opportunity, blah, blah, blah. What does he think he's gaining leaving someplace now and going and joining and not being able to, you're not getting to work with coaches and practice for the next 2 months. You're going to have 4 weeks in the fall. Why do you think you're going to go start somewhere? Oklahoma State must be desperate as shit, or they wouldn't have probably brought a guy in then, but who knows? Who knows? As far as everything goes with the offensive line, though, I mean, it lined up Pritchett at left tackle, Evans at center. You've got Rocco Spindler locked in at right guard. Don't know what's going to happen for sure at right tackle or at left guard. Lutovsky played guard.
He'll be one of those 2. Lutovsky will be.
He'll be one of those 2, but we started hearing them talk about, hey, Lutovsky might be able to pop outside and play right tackle. Yeah. Does he have the size for it? I don't even know where he lines up. I think he's 6'5"-ish. I mean, he's not the 5 or the 6'9", 6'10" Bryce Benhart that we've been working with, but we all know how that experiment turned out.
Lutovsky's 6'6", 320.
So he's plenty big to play tackle.
Yeah.
Plenty big.
Yeah, but I mean, when you have guys that have the tackle experience like Prohaska, Corcoran, and Gatula, if those guys, even one of those guys can be healthy, I would prefer Lutovsky to stay at guard, because that's where he was last year.
Yeah.
But, the versatility is still there.
Yeah.
Because
That's the nice thing about having that many guys, though, is you can actually put them where they're going to do their best job because you're not worried about just backfilling somewhere because you need the body there.
Yeah.
Well, we talked a lot about Corcoran needing to play inside. If Latovsky's able to take over the right side and Corcoran's able to actually be fully healthy, maybe he can realize some more potential inside at left tackle or left guard, excuse me.
Any potential would be nice.
Do you guys think the way that we're going to play offense this year, which is going to be slightly more upbeat, which is going to be, I mean, with the expectation that the offense takes the next step in the passing game, it's going to lead to less tee-off pressure coming at the offensive line. Do you think that that's just from a statistical standpoint going to be an advantage for them as well? Because I do personally.
do I think it's going to be an advantage for the offensive linemen?
Yeah, because I don't think defenses are going to be able to line, like last year by game 3 or 4, you really started to see it in the Illinois game that defenses understood they could line up and just tee off and rush the shit out of Dylan Raiola, which is, one of the big things that you hear. You heard Ari, what's his name? The guy from On 3,
Wasserman.
Ari Wasserman, and the other dude that he has on there. They were super, super high on Dylan Raiola until about week 9 last year.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden that faded. And I saw a preview, like a year preview clip that they did. They talked about Dylan Raiola's growth and his projections for this year. And the other dude that's on his show with him was completely off it. Last year, he was like singing his, like, oh, he's a potential Heisman, blah, blah. He's definitely going to be a first-round draft pick. Now he's like, he doesn't have any pocket awareness. He can't feel pressure. So and that's not something you can learn. So he's done. I don't think he's gonna develop.
Not to make this a quarterback show now, but since you brought that up, it was kind of funny. I was listening to one of the older shows for on the Cover 3 podcast, and they had a whole show of top 10 quarterbacks, returning quarterbacks in college football that played at least one game. And so they have 4 guys on that show. Not one of them, they each made their own top 10. Not one of them had Dylan Raiola on their top 10 as far as returning quarterbacks.
Wow.
I was kind of surprised. Not that I'm not trying to say that Dylan Raiola should be in the top 5 or anything like that, but like even when they went through each of their top 10s and they brought up guys that they put on their list but didn't make the top 10, like Dylan Raiola would have been like 18th on some of these guys' lists. And I was just like,
wow.
Really?
Well, to get back to the show that we're having, this offensive line might help him get back into that conversation.
I agree.
Well, and that's my thing is when a defense can't line up and tee off on you because they know you can't push the ball down the field because you don't have any wide receivers that can get open.
And to kind of go into what you're talking about, and to have a full season of an offensive coordinator that knows how to use a quarterback.
That too.
But anyway.
But that's my big thing is whether or not that's actually going to lead to statistically this offensive line looking a giant leap better. Mm-hmm. Not only do we have more talent, but the more balanced offense, I think it's going to help our run game. It's also going to tremendously help our offensive line just from the standpoint of they're not going to be getting bull rush absolutely studded on every single play because they know, hey, they're down by 2 scores. They have to throw the ball every play, and Dylan Raiola can't feel pressure. Let's go.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like, how much better do you feel about an offensive line at the end of the season when you have a quarterback that threw for at least 3,000 yards? When you have a player or 2 or 3 that might have 1,000 yards from scrimmage, both receiving and rushing. There's potential there for both of those things to happen.
Yeah. At
Nebraska under Holgerson and with the talent that we have on offense at the running back position and the wide receiver position, adding in with Dylan Raiola. Raiola didn't get to 3,000 yards last year. We didn't have a 1,000 yard player from scrimmage last year. We haven't had one in a couple of years. And when you see those kind of stats at the end of the year, again, like, the less you hear about the offensive line, the better you feel about them.
Yeah.
And when you're at the end of the year and you see stats like that, you're like, holy shit, this offensive line really did their thing.
Well, and you get that done, you're also going to get a lot of talk for guys that they should be being looked at for the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, Nebraska turns around and puts 1 or 2 guys in the NFL draft on the offensive line. It starts to look more like the pipeline's rebuilt.
Yep.
Or at least rebuilding.
Yep. That's
going to make recruiting easier. That's going to make guys wanting to transfer. Like, if we can turn around and put Pritchett, who's being talked about now in a preseason 2026 draft projections.
Pre
Mock. He's being looked at late first round.
Yeah.
You put an offensive lineman in the first round that was a transfer in, boom.
Yep.
All of a sudden, you got dudes wanting to come here left and right. It's not going to be any more of this, oh, we have to beg and plead and cry and, all the, the Jackson Cantwells of the world and all those 5-star offensive linemen that are going to play with quarterbacks nobody's ever heard of and don't expect to be any good at Georgia. Those types of guys that aren't really giving us a serious look right now, all of a sudden that's going to change.
Well, and again, you put up certain type of stats and you have a fancy schmancy offense with a really high quality offensive coordinator, added in with a high profile quarterback, that entices a lot of offensive linemen.
Yeah. Winning.
Well, but
winning's going to help that, right?
Not to bring up the little sisters to the west, but that big time offensive lineman,
west.
The childish little bitches.
Oh,
there's just one childish little bitch out there now.
Now, I mean, the other one's on the stadium, but but that one big time offensive lineman that went over there, he went there because they have had a high profile quarterback. I mean, he's not
coach.
He's not a good quarterback, but he's a high profile
he's a good
quarterback.
NFL backup.
Yeah, third string maybe.
Yeah, fifth rounder.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a Colorado Buffalo Hall of Famer though.
Absolutely, first ballot.
That should tell you everything you need to know about Colorado.
They didn't even use a ballot. They just put him up. They didn't even vote on it. That's all I got on the offensive line, guys. Anything else?
I'm just excited to see what they're going to look like in fall. We're going to have a hell of a cohesive unit.
I agree.
First game.
I'm going to throw a little tease out here. We've got an old school Nebraska offensive lineman, 3-year starter from a previous regime or 2 or 3 ago.
Yeah.
That's going to be coming in and doing some shows with us here this summer. I'm super excited to hear what he has to say about this offensive line and what he kind of thinks the future of Nebraska football looks like.
Telling some old school stories and absolutely talking about the offensive line. That'd be great.
Hell yeah.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.